Hola, konnichiwa, hello, ¿cómo estás, tudo bem? What it do? Welcome to the J Boy Sports Podcast, and today we have an episode where we're going to discuss, because it's about that time, numbers. Do they lie? Well, looking at this graphic that we have here, in my opinion, I would say yes. Unequivocally, yes. And this has been an argument that I've been making for a long time. People like to look at numbers and let that be the end-all, be-all of time, especially in today's age. But numbers don't tell the whole story. Especially in sports, watching the box score means absolutely nothing. And people try to make it so that this whole big deal is made out of the box scores. What you see in the box scores is the most important thing. Well, I'm here to ruin that. Because based on what I've heard from everybody that I consider to be truly great, from the greatest competitors, none of them sit there and tell you about the box score. They remember the wins and the losses. If your scores in the box, your box scores, don't mean wins, then what do they matter? They don't. But also on top of that, people like to take numbers out of context and use them to create fake context. And so that's also a problem. Let's take a look at this graphic here. Now it says Robert Horry has more rings than Michael Jordan. Okay. So we can just use those numbers and that tells us everything we need to know about who the better player is? False. Hogwash. Rigmarole. Malarkey. If you watch these two play, Robert Horry made some big shots. No disrespect to Big Shot Bob. I like Big Shot Bob. But he's not Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan scored 60 points in a playoff game against one of the best teams we've ever seen in the Boston Celtics with Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, those guys, you know, just those Hall of Famers, top 75 guys. Robert Horry never scored 60. To be honest with you, respectfully, Mr. Horry, I don't ever remember seeing you score 30. I'm not saying you never did. But as far as I was watching, I never saw it. But if you look at this graphic, it tells you that, hey, Robert Horry has more rings than Michael Jordan. Robert Horry has 7 rings. Michael Jordan has 6. But Michael Jordan was also the MVP of every finals game he ever won. Excuse me, every finals series he ever won. And it wasn't really close as far as who was the runner-up in any of them. Robert Horry was never close to being the finals MVP in any of the rings that he won. Not one, not close. So again, Robert Horry deserves credit. He's a winner. Let's not disrespect him in that way. He is a winner. But it's not close when we say who is the better player. So when we just look strictly at the numbers, yeah, Robert Horry has more rings than Michael Jordan. But if you watch the game, if you understand context, there's no way that Robert Horry's 7 rings hold more weight than Michael Jordan's 6. I don't know if Robert Horry's 7 rings don't hold more weight than Scottie Pippen's 6, and he was never a finals MVP. Robert Horry has never been an all-star in the NBA. Michael Jordan was an all-star pretty much every year. So this is where numbers lie. Next, Steve Nash has more MVPs than Kobe Bryant. You gotta be kidding me. I watched this real time because it's basically my era. And I was disgusted. Steve Nash was a good basketball player, don't get me wrong. He got very good for the years that he was on the Suns. He was good before. He became very good on the Suns. Great orchestrator, excellent passer, very creative, excellent shooter. Very underrated shooter. You guys look at people like Steph Curry now, but low-key Nash was like the Curry of those years that he was in Phoenix. He can make a lot of crazy shots. Well, not crazy, but he could shoot. Like when he shot it, you had a strong feeling it was going in. But is he anywhere near Kobe Bryant? No. Steve Nash, in fact, let's just take a look here. His career points per game. And I should have looked this up before I did this, but I forgot. I didn't think about it. First of all, his career points per game is 14.3. His career assists is 8.5. So his best scoring seasons, the most he ever averaged was 18.6. Right? Excuse me, 18.8 points per game. Let's say 19. And in those seasons, he averaged basically 11 assists. And in the season before, he averaged 15 point. One of the MVPs that he took from Kobe Bryant, because he directly took two that I remember from Kobe. One time he averaged 15.5 points per game and 12, basically 11.5, which is like 12 assists per game. And that was good enough to beat Kobe Bryant, who was averaging well over 30. And in one of those years was averaging 35 points per game. Now, Nash had a much better team at the time. Can't take that away from him. And they beat Kobe Bryant's team in the finals, coming back from a 3-1 deficit. But Kobe's team was like the 7th seed. And if you watch Game 7, a lot of people say Kobe quit. I'm not a fan of that idea. I can see why people say that. But in truth, I don't know. I actually need to go back and watch the game. He had 23 in the first half or 21, something like that. And then he didn't really score. He didn't even take a shot, I believe, in the second half. So was that him maybe being stubborn? I had never heard anybody interview him and ask him the question. Looks like he quit, though. I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, they were much worse than the Suns. The Suns were loaded. Absolutely loaded. In every facet except defense. I believe at least one of those years, I don't know if that was the year they played Kobe. They had Joe Johnson, Q Rich, Amari Stoudemire. I think Raja Bell was on that team. They had Barbosa. They just were Tim Thomas, and Tim Thomas was nice. 6'10", shoot, dribble, all that good stuff. They were nice. And Kobe had primarily Lamar Odom. That was his next best player. And Lamar Odom was averaging maybe 17 points. And I think up to that point in that game, Lamar Odom had like 6 points at halftime. Or I think it was Kwame Brown, actually, that was the second leading scorer that had 6 points at halftime. So the teams were lopsided. All right, moving past that, because I feel like I went off a little bit of a rant there. It doesn't make sense that you can average 15.5, which I guess is 16 points per game, and you're the MVP of the league when another guy is averaging like 33 points, 35 points, whichever year that was for Kobe. Both years were crazy. And he won back-to-back. Kobe scored 81 points in a game in those years. He had 63 points before the Dallas Mavericks had 60. Those Dallas Mavericks went on to actually be in the finals. They lost to Wade and the Heat, but they went to the finals. And Kobe took a finals team and scored 63 points on them before they had 60 and sat out the fourth. Brian Shaw, and I believe it was Byron Scott, said he could have had 90 in that game, but he told Phil Jackson, I'll save it for when we need it, because they were beating him so badly. And then he went out a few weeks later and scored 81. But Steve Nash won MVP over this guy. Here's another problem with this. Shaq also only has one MVP. So Kobe has one MVP. Shaq only has one MVP. Shaq is a 3-time finals MVP. Shaq averaged like 30 and 15 in the finals. Or 30-something and 15 boards in the finals one year. Do you think he just wasn't killing people in the regular season? That's false. But guess what? Steve Nash has 2 MVPs, which is as many as Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal combined. Steve Nash was a very good player. He's nowhere near Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal. Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal are arguably the best players ever. Arguably. You could put them in that conversation. Tim Duncan only has 2 MVPs. Tim Duncan. Tim Duncan is widely considered the best power forward of all time and one of the best players of all time. Boogie Cousins once said, "I don't understand how nobody talks about this guy. All he did was murder me." And I don't think he used the word murder, but he was like, I don't want to hear a conversation about best players ever when Tim Duncan's not in it. Tim only has 2 MVPs. Nash has as many MVPs as Tim Duncan. However, Kobe Bryant has 5 championships. Shaq has 5 championships. Tim Duncan has 5 championships. 15 championships between those 3 players. How many does Steve Nash have? 0. But if you just go by the numbers and you're just looking at MVPs, oh yeah, Steve Nash has more MVPs than Kobe Bryant. Now, also, something I'm just going to touch on briefly. I plan to do a video on this at some point, but the media hated Kobe Bryant. So they gave Steve Nash the MVPs because they hated Kobe. Kobe had the allegation at that time, the R word allegation. That put him in some jeopardy. And then some people just didn't like him. Wasn't cute and cuddly. He wasn't trying to be your friend. He told it like it was. You know, and he didn't play a lot of games with people. So he wasn't trying to be your best friend, trying to be nice, trying to be cute out there. What he said is what he said. So the media didn't like that. They already didn't like that. And then with the R word allegations, they just took MVPs from him. And like I said, I'm going to do something on a video on that so I can be more specific. But that's just a little teaser just to throw that in there. But again, these numbers, these are lying numbers. If you just look at, he has more MVPs. Tony Parker and Stephen Curry have the same amount of finals MVPs. Now again, similar to Nash and Kobe, Tony Parker was a bad boy. I remember watching him play against the Lakers. He was messing us up, man. He's so fast. If you haven't ever watched Tony Parker, watch prime Tony Parker. He was fast and quick. And not the same way, like, it's not like Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, maybe Ja Morant quickness. It's not that. It's something else. And I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's almost like he's a rat or a mouse. Like, you see him and then you don't. You know what I mean? With the other guys I just named, they're up with the Giants. They're dunking on you. You're looking at the bottom of their sneakers. So you can actually get a little bit more of a hold on them. Tony Parker was cat quick, darting in and out like a mouse, trying to get away. 1 minute you see him, 1 minute you don't. You ever seen a mouse? You see him and then you never see him again. That's just how they are. They're like mad elusive. If you ever been outside and see a field mouse, you see them one time and then they're gone. You have no idea where they went. That was Tony Parker. Getting to the basket, shooting 50% from the field as a point guard before it was cool. And an era where they used to knock you on your behind too. Not this era, not this cupcake era. In an era where they really would knock you out. This man was getting to the basket, getting layups on Shaq, the Diesel. He tore us up in the pick and roll with the Spurs. And he was MVP. One time. But guess what? So was Steph. One time. You would think like, oh, snap. So Tony Parker was on Steph's level. Again, Tony Parker was nice. Just like Nash. But he wasn't no Steph Curry. Steph Curry is arguably the greatest shooter of all time. And I say arguably because I'm trying to show some respect for people like Reggie, Ray, and Bird. But realistically, it's him. It's Stephen Curry, the light-skinned assassin. All right? It's him. When he shoots, it's dang near money. If you don't get a hand up. Stephen Curry, the one that is the number one originator of the Warriors dynasty. The Warriors, I believe, are the most wealthy team in the NBA. They're the most expensive team. You think that was a fluke or by an accident? Nah, that's called Steph Curry. Nobody cared about the Warriors outside of the I Believe team, and they were good, but they weren't winning no championship. They just had people that we liked. Steve Jack, Matt Barnes, B. Diddy, my guy, B. Diddy, one of my favorite players of all time. Curry took that and ran further with it. They had Run DMC, excuse me, let me not be disrespectful to Tim Hardaway and Mullins and Mitch Richmond. That was before my time, though, so I didn't watch a lot of that. But Steph Curry's that guy, man. Team won 73 games one year. Barely was losing for a few years. He just wasn't losing. You know? So many accolades, shooting-wise, 50, 40, 90 every year. Just Stephen Curry is one of the best players we've ever seen. Some got him in the top 10, some have him right outside. Depends on the day. He scored 56 last week, and you see games like that, and you want to say, yeah, he's got to be top 10. But who knows? Tony Parker was never top 10. He's never going to be anywhere near top 10. As good as he was, he benefited from a very well-coached Spurs team with a lot of great solid pieces, including Manu Ginobili and Tim Duncan. He had Kawhi at one point. So he's played with some really good players. And Steph has too, but Steph's the leader of that. Steph is more comparable to Tim Duncan than anywhere near Tony Parker. And that's saying a lot because, again, Tony Parker is nice. He's an MVP. I know a great comparison is like, for example, Iguodala, right? Tony Parker is better than Iguodala. Iguodala is good, but Tony Parker was better. And Iguodala has an MVP. He took one of Steph's. So again, you might look at, oh, they have the same amount of MVPs, and Iguodala got that one over Steph, but we all know who made that engine go. They decided to give it to Iguodala. But realistically, whether Curry was making shots or not, when he's on the court, he's the main focus. They don't win without Steph Curry. And Iggy was very important, don't get me wrong. He was D'ing up on LeBron and making every open shot because the Cavs left him wide open and he made him pay. The year after that is when they left Harrison Barnes open, and he didn't make him pay for nothing. And that's why they lost when they had a 3-1 lead, one of the reasons. So Tony Parker is not on the level of Steph Curry. It's not the same thing. You understand? And these numbers, right, lie. A lot of numbers lie. You can't just watch the box scores. You can't just watch from a castle on high at what the numbers look like 5 to 10 years later and think you know the whole story. You don't know the whole story. That may not be how it went down. So this is just a small sample size. We're going to touch more on this numbers lie idea because they do. And so you'll see something else from me soon about this. But I've always, since especially more recent times, the past 10, 12 years or so, this obsession with numbers that I never saw before. People looking at field goal percentages and stuff like that. The only thing that really mattered was your free throw percentage, and that was because Shaq couldn't make them. No disrespect, Diesel. You know it was a weakness. Everything else, nobody cared. Nobody cared. You weren't watching percentages, but all of a sudden, we're watching field goal percentages. We're watching PERs. We're watching how long people have the ball and don't have the ball, and all these extra numbers. We're shooting way more threes, even if you can't shoot. And don't get me wrong, I like the idea of shooting threes if you're open, but if you miss 5 or 6 in a row, you have two options. Either you start going to the basket and you better be able to find a way to get down there or get some fouls called for you, or you go to the bench and we bring in the next person that can make shots. They don't even have they have the unmitigated gall to not even do that. They just let you sit out there and brick. I watched Bojan Bogdanovic, or I might have got my Bogdanoviches wrong. but the one that used to be on the Hawks and is now on the Clippers. I watched him go like 1 for 10. And yeah, he's a shooter, but I'm supposed to sit there and let you, the guy that's supposed to be the shooter, go 1 for 10? Somebody blow the whistle. He's got to go. Next guy up until he can find his rhythm. Next game, but we're losing this one because he's shooting and missing everything. But that's the way the game's played now. You know, and the numbers tell you it's better to shoot a 3, supposedly, even though you lose because you didn't make any of your threes, but whatever. So, appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this. This is something that's a little bit different, but something that's been bothering me for a long time. I really do not believe that numbers tell the whole story. You got to watch. You got to watch the games. You got to look at the context in which the game was held. Was this a tense environment? Was there some bad blood a couple games before? You know, there's so much there's so many reasons why we can't just look at the numbers. People just look at the box scores and it messes up the regular season because there's no other stories being told. Where's the rest of the stories? There used to be stories. The last time these two teams played, somebody lost their shoe. The last time these two teams played, somebody got undercut. The last time these two players played against each other, there was a shoving match and finger pointing. You don't want to hear the last time these two teams played, both teams were 2 for 4,000 from the three-point line. Come on, man. Come on. Let's get back to really paying attention to the whole context of everything. So thank you for watching this video. Please like, share, and subscribe to the J-Boy Sports podcast. Share with your friends. We're trying to grow a great community here. I appreciate you very much. Much love. Somehow you never get over leaving me.